Two children die in hospital after being found unconscious with father in a Yau Ma Tei flat. A university student sentenced to 180 hours of community service for insulting the national anthem. And Donald Trump's doubling of tariffs on goods from India to as much as 50% takes effect. Hello and welcome to TVB News. I'm Melissa Hekalea. A man and his two young children were found unconscious in a residential flat in Yau Ma Tei this afternoon. The two children later died in hospital. The incident occurred at Kamwa Building on Canton Road. Around 3 p.m., a woman called the police saying that the son had not arrived at the tutoring center on time and she was concerned about the safety of her husband and children. Upon arrival, police and rescue personnel forced their way into the apartment and found a 40-year-old man, an 8-year-old boy, and a 3-year-old girl unconscious. There were bloodstains and a knife at the scene. The three were rushed to Queen Elizabeth Hospital and Kwangwa Hospital. According to sources, the man had knife wounds on his neck and hands, while the children were suspected to have been drugged and lost consciousness. A university student was today sentenced to 180 hours of community service after being found guilty of insulting the national anthem. The defendant turned his back to the football pitch of Hong Kong Stadium when the song was played at a World Cup qualifier last year. Jackie Lin with the story.
Defendant Lau Pun Hei, 19 years old at the time of the incident, arrived at Eastern Magistrates Court in the morning. During the World Cup Asian qualifier football match in June last year, when the Hong Kong team played against Iran at Hong Kong Stadium, the defendant was arrested after turning his back to the pitch when the national anthem was played. Pending the defendant's probation report, the sentencing, originally scheduled for August 13th, was adjourned until today. The defendant's lawyer said in his plea that Lau is only a university student and it's unlikely he will commit the offense again, and Lau understood how his behavior at the time was irrational, so they hoped the court could hand down a community service order. After reviewing the defendant's background and probation report, Magistrate Castro Lam noted the defendant, being a Chinese University of Hong Kong student at the Department of Social Sciences and Public Administration, has been described as a mature, self-disciplined and hardworking person, and he had won the Best Debater award in secondary school competitions. He also took up a part-time job as a waiter to help support his family. Considering the offense was not premeditated, the act of disrespecting the national anthem was not the most severe and no violence was involved, nor was the crowd provoked, the magistrate said the impact was relatively minor and the chance of reoffending was low. With that, the defendant was sentenced to 180 hours of community service. After hearing the verdict, Lau left the courthouse accompanied by relatives and friends. Police said the magistrate had taken deterrence into account and the force respects the court sentence. Police remind the public that insulting the national anthem is punishable by up to 3 years in prison and a maximum fine of $50,000. Jackie Lin, TVB News.
The import price of unleaded petrol has eased in recent years, but the retail pump prices at petrol stations have kept climbing to record highs. Some motorists suspect petrol companies of price collusion, with some academics questioning whether the land costs of gas stations is merely an excuse used by oil companies to justify their pricing. Jackie Lin with details.
At the pump in Hong Kong, topping up your tank in recent years has come with steeper prices. It costs nearly $30 per litre to refuel with unleaded petrol, with premium ones charging even more premium prices. This driver says 4 or 5 years ago it set them back just $17 per litre, and now it's $28 per litre. Average import prices of unleaded petrol rose from under $2 per litre in mid-2020 to more than $8 in June 2022, with retail prices rising in tandem. However, while import prices later fell back to around $4, retail prices failed to follow suit. Across different petrol stations, the listed retail price is similar. This station charges $28.29 per litre. Another three set a similar rate at $28.44. This motorist says it's often that one company raises the price and the rest just follow. In the end, it's the consumers who are squeezed. Since June 2003, the government has introduced a new tendering arrangement for petrol station land, hoping to introduce more competition to the market. But retail prices kept going up. HKU Business School Associate Professor Zhou Wen says land premiums are fixed costs, and regardless of land prices, oil companies have little incentive to trim prices if it eats into their profits. In June, the Competition Commission says it had completed investigations into anti-competitive conduct in the motor fuel sector. It found no evidence meeting the legal threshold and therefore took no further action. Lawmaker Holden Chow says close monitoring should continue as high fuel prices impact people's daily lives, with the city's prices at the pump markedly elevated compared with global crude oil trends. Jacqueline, TVB News.
With an area of low pressure moving closer to the city, the observatory will consider whether there's a need to issue the standby signal number 1 tomorrow morning. The area of low pressure has entered the central and northern parts of the South China Sea and is expected to develop into a tropical cyclone. The system is still relatively loosely organized and is anticipated to move towards Hainan Island. Unless it takes a path closer to the coast of Guangdong, the chance of sustaining strong winds in the region is relatively low. Thunderstorms triggered by high temperatures have affected Hong Kong today, with more than 40 millimeters of rainfall recorded in the vicinity of Lau Fao Shan. Online videos show hailstones falling from the sky in Tuen Mun on Tuesday. The observatory issued a hail warning today, but has received no hail reports so far. U.S. President Donald Trump has said he's prepared to impose economic sanctions against Russia if President Vladimir Putin fails to agree to a ceasefire in the war in Ukraine. Russia's top diplomat Sergei Lavrov made it clear last week that Putin won't meet with Ukrainian President Volodymyr Zelensky until the Ukrainians agree to some of Moscow's long-standing demands. This as Zelensky announced that Ukrainian and U.S. teams will meet this week to explore the possibility of peace negotiations between Kyiv and Moscow. Tracy Furness reports.
U.S. President Donald Trump has withheld long-threatened sanctions against Russia in his latest push to end the more than 3-year-old Russia-Ukraine war. Trump is seeking one-on-one talks with Zelensky and Putin. Though Zelensky has agreed in principle to such talks, Putin has not. In his nightly address, the Ukrainian president said Russia is giving signals that it's going to continue to evade real negotiations. This can only be changed by strong sanctions, strong tariffs, real pressure. During a marathon cabinet meeting in Washington about the Russia-Ukraine war, President Trump was asked by reporters why Putin will not sign a peace deal with Zelensky.
This past weekend, Sergei Lavrov was saying that Putin will not sign a peace deal with Zelensky because Russia views him as illegitimate. I'm just wondering if the Russians have been relaying this to your team, if they view Zelensky, as a leader worth signing a peace deal with.
Doesn't matter what they say. Everybody's posturing. Steve, do you have a different answer?
I agree with you, sir.
Meanwhile, Zelensky met on Tuesday with the outgoing chief of the UK Defence Staff, Admiral Sir Anthony Radakin, and was introduced to his successor, Richard Knighton. Speaking during the meeting, Radakin told Zelensky the UK's support for Ukraine is not personality dependent, it's nation dependent.
Also about introducing Rich and to stress that our support to you and Ukraine is not personality dependent, it's nation dependent, and Rich will continue that level of support in exactly the same way that you would expect.
Thank you so much.
Tracy Furness, TVB News.
U.S. President Donald Trump's doubling of tariffs on goods from India to as much as 50% took effect as scheduled today. This an escalation of tensions between the two strategic partners. Daniel Rao reports.
A punitive 25% tariff imposed due to India's purchases of Russian oil adds to US President Donald Trump's prior 25% tariff on many products from India. It takes total duties to as high as 50% for Indian goods such as garments, gems and jewellery, footwear, sporting goods, furniture and chemicals. These are among the highest imposed by the US and on par with Brazil and China. Speaking on condition of anonymity, an Indian Commerce Ministry official said exporters in India hit by tariffs would receive financial assistance. The official outlined they would be encouraged to diversify to other markets. A US Customs and Border Protection notice to shippers provides a 3-week exemption for Indian goods that were loaded onto a vessel and in transit to the US before the midnight deadline. These goods can still enter the US at prior lower tariff rates before 12:01 a.m. on September 17th. Also exempted are steel, aluminium and derivative products, passenger vehicles, copper and other goods, subject to separate tariffs of up to 50% under the Section 232 National Security Trade Law. The two-way goods trade between India and the US totaled $129 billion in 2024, with a $45.8 billion US trade deficit. Export groups estimate hikes could affect nearly 55% of India's $87 billion in merchandise exports to the US. They say it could also benefit India's competitors such as Vietnam, Bangladesh and China. Wednesday's tariff move follows 5 rounds of failed talks. Officials on both sides blamed political misjudgment and missed signals for the breakdown in talks between the world's biggest and 5th largest economies. A German newspaper reported Indian Prime Minister Narendra Modi refused to take calls from US President Donald Trump on 4 occasions in recent weeks. The Frankfurter Allgemeine Zeitung suggested this may have been an attempt by Modi to signal India will not cave in to US demands. The US-India standoff has raised questions about the broader relationship between Washington and New Delhi. However, ahead of the imposition of the US tariffs, both sides expressed eagerness to continue enhancing the breadth and depth of the bilateral relationship. The two nations also reaffirmed their commitment to the Quad, a partnership that brings together the US, India, Australia and Japan. Dan Rowell, TVB News.
Donald Trump says he likes to see Chinese and other foreign students entering U.S. universities, but his wish to welcome up to 600,000 Chinese students has drawn criticism from some of the most outspoken members of the Republican Party. Trump told reporters on Tuesday that he likes Chinese students and students from other countries coming to the U.S. He further said that if these overseas students do not come, the U.S. college system would go to hell very quickly. It's a sharp departure from official messages in May when Secretary of State Marco Rubio promised the U.S. would aggressively revoke visas for Chinese students and add more scrutiny to all future applications from China. Representative Marjorie Taylor Greene, a staunch Republican, railed against the idea on social media. Why are we allowing 600,000 students from China to replace our American students' opportunities, she asked. Still ahead, mass evacuation in eastern Pakistan as India releases water from overflowing dams. And liver cancer cases projected to reach 1.52 million by 2050. U.S. Federal Reserve Governor Lisa Cook will file a lawsuit to prevent President Donald Trump from firing her, according to Cook's lawyer. This could lead to a long legal fight over the White House's effort to shape U.S. monetary policy. Trump said he would fire Cook for alleged deceitful and potential criminal conduct related to mortgages she took out in 2021. Trump said on Tuesday there are some very good people for that position. He also had some less than complimentary comments about Federal Reserve Chairman Jerome Powell.
I got a bad recommendation when I went with Jerome Too Late. You know, it's just, he's too late. His nickname is Too Late. Costing us a lot of money, hurting the housing. I mean, our housing industry is good, but it could be phenomenal. Most of this country, in economic terms, has been phenomenal. We've never seen anything like it. Because of him and his high interest rates, the housing is less than it could be. We're going to get that straightened out very quickly. He gets out very quickly, fortunately.
Pakistan has evacuated tens of thousands of people to safer areas after neighboring India released water from overflowing dams and swollen rivers into low-lying border regions. The move came a day after New Delhi alerted Islamabad about possible cross-border flooding, marking the first public diplomatic contact between the two nuclear-armed rivals in months. Rescuers evacuated more than 14,000 people from the Kasur district, while over 89,000 were moved to safer ground from the city of Bahawalnagar near the Indian border. The defense of former media tycoon Jimmy Lai continued its closing arguments in the city's landmark national security trial today. The 77-year-old is charged with conspiracy to collude with foreign forces and publishing seditious materials. He could face a maximum sentence of life imprisonment. Mimo Singhai reports.
Jimmy Lai's trial resumed at the West Kowloon Law Courts this morning, day 155. On the sixth day of closing submissions by the defense, Lai's barrister Robert Pan said the prosecution had argued Lai still followed the Twitter accounts of Stand With Hong Kong, an interparliamentary alliance on China, after the implementation of the national security law. Pan said that did not mean Lai supported the two organizations. Pan said the court should consider the reliability of the testimony of the prosecution witness, Chen Jiwa. Pan said Chen had already been convicted and could receive benefits by being a prosecution witness. The defense described Chen as a serial liar and violent nutter for proposing applying violence to overturn the government to establish a government in exile. Pan said the court should have a spirit of justice and empathy when assessing the reliability of Lai's testimony. Judge Amalda Remedios said, "Why does the court need to have empathy?" Pan said the court should consider Lai's age and memory. The proceedings continue on Thursday. News 9, TVB News.
Joint research by the Chinese University of Hong Kong's Faculty of Medicine and mainland scholars estimates that the global number of liver cancer patients will reach 1.52 million by 2050. But researchers say 60% of the cases are preventable. The study was published in a leading medical journal, The Lancet. Mimo Singhai reports.
Liver cancer is the third most deadly type of cancer in Hong Kong, but liver cancer detection often comes late because of its subtle early symptoms, reducing patients' 5-year survival rate to less than 30%. A joint research project by CUHK's Faculty of Medicine and mainland scholars predicts the number of new liver cancer cases across the globe will increase from about 870,000 to 1.52 million by 2050. But the researchers said at least 60% of the cases are preventable. The primary causes of liver cancer include hepatitis B and C virus infections, or HBV and HCV, and excessive alcohol use. In 2022, HBV and HCV infections were the cause of 39% and 29.1% of the liver cancer cases, while 18.8% were related to alcohol use. By 2050, the study projects that the distribution of the disease caused by alcohol use and metabolic dysfunction-associated steatohepatitis, or MASH, will increase to 21.1% and 10.8% respectively. Those related to HBV and HCV will record a small decline. The researchers said hepatitis vaccination and screening of high-risk groups are effective means to prevent liver cancer. But public awareness of liver health remains insufficient, including the importance of a balanced diet.
Now when you eat some food in the restaurants, most of the time you don't know what the calories or the fat content you have eaten. I think maybe food labeling in the food is one of the concepts.
Chen said new cases could be reduced by 2 to 5% annually if suitable measures are implemented worldwide.
CU Medicine says a total of 51 international authors collaborated to complete the liver cancer report, which consists of 4 years of preparation. News 9, TVB News.
The funeral of Henry Hu, the founding chancellor of Shuyuan University, took place today. He passed away at the end of last month. People from the political, educational, and other sectors went to pay their last respects to Hu at the Hong Kong Funeral Home in North Point. The pallbearers included Executive Council Convener Regina Ip, Shuyuan University Council Chairman Kenneth Ting, former Secretaries for Justice Elsie Leung, and Wong Yan Leung, among others. whose eldest son, Hu Yao-su, held a photograph of his father. Founded in 1971, Xuyan was Hong Kong's first private university providing tertiary education to students. And that is the news. Thanks for watching. Bye for now.